board members, and our town manager, staff Greg Berman, County Commissioner Ron, and our fire chief, Justin Tabano. Welcome to Chatham. I'm going to let Justin come up and give us a little brag out about fire department.
Thank you, Shireen, and welcome everybody. Some familiar faces in the room from years past, so welcome back to Chatham. Welcome back to the best fire department on the Cape and the best town on the Cape. I say that tongue in cheek. It's really a pleasure to be part of such an incredible network on Cape Cod. We work so well together, similar to you all being here today and in collaborating. We do the same thing with the fire department and in public safety. We have a number of different networks that allows us to share resources, problems, challenges, solutions, and sometimes most importantly, friendship. We have a Fire Chiefs Association that meets once a month, where we collaborate, we identify trends, and we work together to help solve problems that might be on the horizon. Similarly, we share resources. We have a county technical rescue team that trains monthly. You folks from Yarmouth are probably pretty familiar with that, with the recent tragedy with the construction over there. So it's really a special place to work, not just in Chatham, but on the Cape in general. It's everybody. There's 1,000 firefighters on the Cape, and we all know each other. So it's really, we work well together. We always know that somebody's just a phone call away for any help that we need. So for all the towns that you represent, I thank you for sharing your resources with us in Chatham, and we're happy to reciprocate. So welcome to the department. If you need anything, back through the door in the back, the bathroom is, when you see the Dalmatian, just take a right, the bathroom's right there. Emergency exit, you can go out the same way you came in. If it's unsafe that way, the door behind us over here is a break room. Just cut through there and you'll see the side exit. Other than that, the room is yours. If you need anything, just I'll be around the building. Just give me a shout, and welcome and enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you. Shireen, anybody else?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, very good. All right, the next item on our agenda is our guest speaker, who is become quite well known here on Cape Cod. Brian Baumgaertel from the county's Health and Environmental Department. Brian is our clean water czar, I call him. And we're very excited about the work that's going on at the center. There have been huge investments made by other partners, you could say, in terms of the work that's going on there. When we talk about wastewater, clearly we as a region, have a huge challenge ahead of us. And one of the most important components of meeting this challenge is how we go about the business of installing, siting, innovative alternative systems. It's an important component of our overall regional comprehensive wastewater management plan. And in many respects, the responsibilities for sort of success in this part of our overall plan rests on the towns. So we have significant responsibilities there. The good thing is that when it comes to IA systems, we as a region have come together with a county capability developed by our Health and Environmental Department. The original sort of conception of this began when I was just a young aide to Congressman Studs. And there's the Health Department Director, George Hoyfelder, came into our office with this idea of taking a waste stream from the wastewater effluent at the base before it goes into the treatment plant, diverting it and creating a test bed to test and evaluate the performance of IA systems. And so sure enough, we were able to figure out the huge federal bureaucracy dealing with the military. And we have this center that's been there now for over 20 years. 26 years. And it's been remarkable in that the work that it does there is, not only is it incredibly important, but their work is respected by the regulatory community at the state, the federal level, and now we're building bridges in the international arena. So, Brian, come on up here and give us an update on all the great work going on at the center.
Talk a little. Okay. Good morning. Thank you, Mark, for that great introduction. So Brian Baumgaertel, director of the new Clean Water Center at Barnstable County. In my personal life, I am a Cub Master and a Scout Master for our local troops. If anybody has ever volunteered with that organization, you know they tell you it's an hour a week, right? Yeah. Well, I do it twice. It's a very enjoyable organization. But to get to the subject at hand, I wanted to come and give you an update on the activities that we are doing at the county. And the way I see our programs is we help to fill the gaps that exist in our wastewater treatment plans and capacity, right? We're not there to take things over. We're not there to just do the work for you. We're there to help you fill the gaps in the little spaces that make sense to regionalize. Let me see. Can we do, hold on, probably have to click. There we go. All right, so I'm going to start with a set of facts because these are some things that all of us in the room know. 85% of Cape Cod homeowners are still relying on Title V, conventional Title V septic systems. And our sewering projects, despite the fact that we're spending large amounts of money on right now, still account for very small portions of Cape Cod. Now, this map was created by APCC in 2022, so things have expanded out a little bit since this was created, but it gives you the general idea of what we are up against. The brown areas are those that are primarily relying on Title V. The sewered areas are those little almost black dots that are spread around the map, and the green are the open spaces that we have around the area. And we know the result of nitrogen in our embayments, and we've all seen the headlines that have come out over the last few years, and we all know the impacts of what these things are. So I'm not even going to get into that and try to convince you that nitrogen is a problem. So my focus is going to be whether, not really sewer or on-site. I'm going to talk mostly about on-sites, but the theme of our work is that we always say, you know, when we're talking about sewers or utilizing on-site systems, it's not really one or the other. You need to look at a mix of both. And why is that the case? Well, so I took the 208 plan, which was developed by the Cape Cod Commission in 2014 or so. And as we all remember, they did an analysis at the start of that and determined that sewering only for Cape Cod was going to cost us somewhere in the realm of $4.2 to $6.2 billion. And they came up with this great hybrid plan, right? The hybrid plan involved sewering. It involved IA technologies and composting toilets and permeable reactive barriers and shellfish. And they were able to bring that cost down to somewhere to $2.2 to $3.8 billion. Well, that was 10, 11 years ago now. And inflation, as we all know, has been horrible. And one thing that you should also know is that construction doesn't follow just CPI, the consumer product inflation rate, which is usually around 3%, unless it's COVID. This rate follows typically like 8 to 10%. So if you apply that to, you do the little calculation that's associated with that, the sewer only plan at this point will cost the region $6.2 to $9.2 billion. And remember, this is simple math. Like, I haven't done a huge analysis here. It's just a simple application of inflation to it. And our hybrid plan will be somewhere around 2.8 to 5.4 billion. So I bring this up because I want to make the point that it is important that we are continuously investigating the alternatives to big sewer projects. Now, we all know sewer projects are incredibly important for our region because it is oftentimes the most efficient way of getting the job done. And I don't think anybody will really argue that sewer is like the gold standard in wastewater treatment, right? So there are some watersheds where we have to remove all nitrogen. Sewers are really the only way to do that. But there are a lot of regions on the Cape where perhaps IA technologies might work better and be more cost effective. Or we might look at things like permeable reactive barriers, which got a lot of attention maybe 5 years ago or more, but it seems like PRBs are kind of fading off into the background. We're still talking about shellfish. It's in part of some of the plans. But again, I continuously watch this stuff, and it seems like some of these alternatives have started to take a bit of a backseat. So our job is to make sure, we're giving the information about the technologies that are available that are not just the traditional sewering options, so that we can help bring the cost down, the overall cost of taking care of the wastewater problem on Cape Cod. So how do we do that? Well, through Barnstable County. I got a little slide. I forgot this was here. I'm sorry.
Just keep talking.
Okay. Just to give you a sense of what an alternative septic system is. So over on the left, your left, is a septic tank leach pit setup. Over on the right is a typical innovative alternative septic system that involves the septic tank, some sort of denitrification system, and then a leach pit or a leach field. It's a pretty basic setup. There's not, conceptually, there's not a lot to be added to it, but there is a good amount of technology that goes into that denitrification unit section. So the Clean Water Center, which we formally opened this past September, exists in the space that occupies where MassTC, the Alternative Septic System Test Center, is. And it is an encompassment of the growth in the programming that we've been putting together over the last several years. So MassTC is one of those programs that was established, as Mark said, in 1999. So we're enjoying our 26th, kind of 27th year at this point. It's the premier third-party testing facility for septic system technologies. So we are the place where companies come to test their technologies and do research and development. And as Mark said, we, while we are obviously recognized amongst the folks in this room, we are also recognized by the state. We maintain a very consistent communication chain with them. We work with our federal partners when they are friendly to these types of things. And we also work with an international community. And we've done that for a number of years by doing testing for companies that come from all around the globe. Historically, we've had systems that have come from Lithuania, Israel, Japan, Canada, Mexico. But more recently, we've been expanding that sort of global scope to work with I'll just say it, the Gates Foundation. So as in like Bill Gates, the billionaire who owns Microsoft, right? So he has a foundation he has long been interested in, and then through the foundation has long been interested in bringing better sanitation technologies to the world. Because while we enjoy our nice flush toilets and a tap where we can grab water at pretty much any time, it's not really the case for most of the world. And he has been working toward developing what he's called Toilets of the Future, or the Toilet Innovation Project. And more recently, they've started to realize that while bringing these technologies to underdeveloped countries is a great thing to do, it's not a great business model for companies that are trying to develop these products. So what they are intending to do is start to develop a pathway for these companies and their technologies to be marketed to more developed parts of the world. And they identified the United States as one of those markets they wanted to start to build capacity into. And they're doing this through what's called the 30500 ISO standard. It's non-sewered sanitation systems. And the idea here is that these are systems that rely not at all on the proximity or availability of large-scale treatment capacity. So we have our on-site systems here in Cape Cod. We have our septic systems, but we still need some sort of a sewer available or a sewer treatment plant available to treat the sludge that comes from those particular technologies, right? These technologies are intended to be totally non-reliant on having that available. So they deal with the sludge specifically within the actual system itself. Some of the technologies we've seen use like an incineration. Some will dry and turn it into a cake product that can be transported elsewhere, potentially used as a fertilizer. But the basic concept is that it's a totally packaged system that can do everything on its own. So what does that require for us to be able to do testing for them is to get a new ISO accreditation, which is a huge process for us. It checks all the things like our standard operating procedures and policies and all this, but it does, it really elevates the test center to a higher level. We're doing a lot of site work to be able to accommodate this new set of testing, and we're expecting our first client for this in March. And you might ask, like, well, you guys are the Cape Cod Clean Water Center and MassTC. Why are you working on global problems, right? The way I see it, and sort of our tagline of the Clean Water Center is local solutions, global impact. And then that really cycles back around, because when you have an impact on the global market in certain areas, those technologies can come back around and be helpful for our local needs. So that's a big reason why we've decided to move forward with this project. Not only for, well, frankly, there's a little bit of an ego thing because we got approached by the Gates Foundation. We're like, that's really cool. But really because it allows us to work on like this big global project that also can help our own region. This was a $2.8 million grant we got from them. The first client will be coming over from South Korea. A group of us will actually be working on Saturday tomorrow because they're coming to visit us. They're doing a tour of the States. And they're coming out to our facility tomorrow to see where their system will be placed and everything, and have some conversations about how we'll run that first test. So we're pretty excited about that. One of the other big projects going on out there right now is a new laboratory facility, which has been funded by the Massachusetts Technology Collaborative. That was a $1.8 million grant we received last year to create this sort of water cluster concept, which is to create this new laboratory facility out there that offers expanded laboratory analyses, offers bench scale locations where vendors can test really conceptual ideas and really prototypical ideas, and also to create a small prototype workshop where they can actually work on creating components that they might need while they're on site. And the idea is to try to bring in we work a lot with the private sector. We want to bring in more of the academic sector and the research folks into our sphere a little bit more. We do work with a lot of universities in the area, University of Rhode Island, UMass, a little bit with Worcester Polytech, but we really want to expand that and start to work outside of our small sphere and really start to expand that. And this new facility will allow us to do that. The other really big project we've been working on for a number of years is mostly in conjunction with the town of Falmouth, but I think it has implications for the whole Cape. And some people laugh when we say this, but eco toilets and urine diversion, I think, offers some really great solutions for our area. Eco toilets, just to run through what that means, it's things like composting toilets, incinerating toilets, basically things that are doing some of the treatment on their own or doing it in a completely different way from what we're familiar with. And urine diversion, the basic concept is to take urine and split it off of our waste stream because it contains a lot of the nutrients that we're concerned with. Nitrogen, somewhere in the realm of 80% of the nitrogen in our wastewater is in our urine, and somewhere around 60 to 70% of the phosphorus is in our urine. So if we're able to take that out of, take that stream, no pun intended, well, pun intended, take that stream out of our waste stream and turn it into something that's usable, because everybody who gardens here knows that every bag of fertilizer has three numbers on the front, right? Separated by dashes. It's the NPK ratio, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Well, I just talked about the first two in that, right? Nitrogen and phosphorus. So there are companies that are actively working on trying to figure out how we can take urine and turn it into a fertilizer product. You might say, oh, that's gross. Well, we do that right now via our biosolids in the United States. Treatment plants produce a lot of sludge material. In certain parts of the country, not so much the Northeast anymore, biosolids are heavily used to amend agricultural lands to grow crops. And as you know, wastewater contains the urine that I was just talking about. So we're already doing this. But one of the advantages of sort of splitting it out is that you're not now dealing with all of the nasty industrial waste and things that gets mixed in with solid sludge, etc. It's a very it's a smelly product, but it's easy to work with. It's a fluid. You can pump it around. It's fairly easy to work with. So the basic concept is you would have these urine diversion fixtures in homes, etc. Collect the urine, bring it to a facility where it's processed and turned into fertilizer, ultimately, which can then be circulated back into the food chain. And if you think about nitrogen and phosphorus, it's really part of our food chain, and which is really the nitrogen and phosphorus cycling in the world that we've accelerated incredibly fast. If you look at how we do agriculture now, aside from biosolids, we're sucking nitrogen out of the air with a very energy intensive process called the Haber-Bosch process that takes about 3% of global power use to fertilize our food, which we grow. and then we all put it into a wastewater stream where we try to get it back out, and that takes another 3% or so of global power use to take it back out. And then it's back in the atmosphere, and we use Haber-Bosch again. So we created this crazy cycle where we're spending a lot of energy just trying to like get rid of this stuff and shunt it around. Whereas this offers the potential of shortcutting some of that and maybe making a little bit more of a sustainable cycle for us. So it's kind of an exciting project to work on. You know, we talk about urine diversion, and a lot of people say ew, but there are also a lot of people who say, well, maybe that sounds kind of interesting. So we investigate it because I think it does have an impact for Cape Cod potentially. And we've been working with the town of Falmouth for 3 years probably now to try to put together a pilot program, which we are on the cusp of actually doing, which will install 25 urine diversion fixtures in homes. And we'll be doing a lot of testing on that to really test out the concept and see how well it actually works in terms of both the nitrogen removal piece, but also is that economy that I just discussed of circulating the nutrients in that manner, is that a cost-effective way of dealing with the nitrogen? So we want to answer some of those questions, and this project hopefully will be able to answer some of those questions. In addition to who will actually do this is another important one, because it is a different way of going to the bathroom. And since we were all littles, we were told how to do it in a certain way. So to change that can be difficult for some. I want to talk a little bit about Cape Cod Aqua Fund. This is also part of our division. So this is our financial support program to help Cape Cod homeowners meet clean water goals. It is our low interest rate program. As you may remember, I think I presented this group probably 3 years ago or so about the change in the interest rate structure for that program so that we could offer 0% loans to folks of lower income, lower means that are in these new watershed areas where we're telling them that they need to connect to sewer. So while we are municipally funding all of the main sewer infrastructure, the treatment plants, the pipes down the road, as we all know, homeowners still need to be able to connect to that main pipe that's there, and that's one of their responsibilities in all this project, right? So they can get a loan through the Cape Cod Aqua Fund program, the 20-year loan. If they qualify for the low interest, they get it at 0%. If they make a little bit more, they get 2%. If they make a little bit more, they get a 4% loan. If you're still doing a standard septic system, we still do a lot of those because for the foreseeable future, Cape Cod is still going to be very reliant on septic systems. Despite all of our efforts to put in sewers, it's going to take a lot of time. So we still do a significant number of programs, replacements through that program for on-site standard septic systems. And also, if towns start to think about actual adoption of advanced septic system technologies for nitrogen removal. I think Falmouth is, again, I mentioned Falmouth because they're kind of a leader on this right now at looking at certain watersheds where they might want to apply these technologies. Those lower interest rates would be available to those homeowners as well. That program has been in existence since 2007. And to give you a little bit of history on that, in the state of Massachusetts, it's I think they call it the Community Septic Management Program, CSMP. Any of the 350 communities can avail themselves of it. And historically, many of them have, but somebody had the great idea of saying, well, why should individual health departments, because it's usually health departments who are having to run these programs with their minimal staffing, have to do this? What if we kind of group this together? We'll regionalize this project to make it a little bit easier on everybody and still get the job done, right? So since 2007, we've loaned out $76 million to the region. And $10 million of that has come since August 2024, which was shortly after we changed the interest rates. So we have huge amounts of money going out the door. And in fact, just this week, we started the process of borrowing another $20 million from the state revolving fund to continue to fund that program. About a year and a half, 2 years ago, we borrowed $13 million from the state. We've just about used that up at this point, so it's time for the next batch. This is important because as you're investing in sewer infrastructure, this is like the last mile, right? These are the final connections that make the sewer plant actually do what we intended it to do. So we will continue pushing that program out as much as possible to make sure homeowners know about it. When we look at sort of the numbers of people who actually participate in the program, I'd like to see them move up a little bit higher because we're seeing probably about 25 to 30% at the top of homeowners actually participating in each of the sewering phases we're seeing. So your help in making sure that the program is getting out to the world would be great. It means more work for us, but that's sort of the intent, right? We want to fly through that money because it means that projects are getting done and people are saving a lot of money. The last program I want to talk about is our septic utility program. We created this about 4 years ago or so based on a grant we received from EPA. And the intent of this program is to support the town, support homeowners, and making sure that if you are using advanced on-site technologies, making sure that those things are actually running, that they're removing nitrogen, and that we're not saddling the homeowners with an expensive boat anchor that's buried out in their yard, right? We want to make sure we have consistent, reliable, and cost-effective septic management solutions. So what are the kinds of things that a septic utility program can do? If you look in the broader world of government acronyms, the SUP is what's called an RME, Responsible Management Entity. And if you look at how these programs are implemented across the country, the intention is really to manage on-site systems in a more of a utility type fashion, right? So rather than individual homeowners being saddled with the total cost and burden of maintaining and operating an on-site system that they probably didn't really want to have in the first place and might not really see the benefit from because they don't get to go to the embayment that they're protecting by putting it there, it gives them sort of an equivalent service to what we get for those who are on a sewer. We don't all get a work ticket where we have to go down and work at the sewer plant for a day to make sure we're covering our piece of the sewer, right? We pay for it and it gets done. This is the basic concept here. Homeowners are paying for a service that is typically municipally driven in one way, shape, or form, and it takes care of the system so that they are not necessarily burdened with that responsibility completely on their own. It can take a lot of forms. It can be everything from, the town owns everything to the town is just sort of, keeping up with everything, maybe taking some samples to make sure the system's running, and everything in between that. It's really a spectrum. So this program offers that spectrum of services. We can work with any town to help you really with what your needs might be. If you want us to help take the sampling for the systems, we can work to just take the samples for those systems. There are a number of projects where we do that now. If you want to do operation and maintenance and take that service from the homeowner's responsibility, we can work on supporting operation and maintenance. If you want help with rolling out technologies and making sure that they're installed properly and efficiently done, we can assist with that as well. It's a very flexible service, knowing that every town likes to do things differently and has a different situation that they're trying to deal with. We wanted to make sure that this program was flexible for your needs. Makes it maybe a little bit more difficult for us because we're not just providing a defined service, but I think it's important, and I've learned through the years, you need to provide flexible services to the towns because you all do things a little bit differently. It is available Cape-wide. A couple of the sort of side projects we work on with this, workforce development is an important aspect. The water and wastewater sector is retiring out and quickly. And younger folks are not coming in and backfilling those positions as quickly as we need them to. So we are starting to spin up a workforce development program. The start of this is to offer a new certification class for on-site technologies. So these advanced technologies need to be operated and maintained. The state requires some licensure, but it's not really specific to on-site systems. The certification process program would offer really the towns to say, we want to make sure that the operators of these technologies know what they're doing. They've been vetted, and this certification would provide that opportunity. Similar to when you look at some of the other vendors are out there, you're looking for certifications to know that they can do the work that they're being hired to do. But we also want to work towards looking at the bigger scope of workforce development problems within the sector. And we're really focused on wastewater, but it kind of has tangentially will affect the water sector as well. we need wastewater treatment plant operators, whether we're talking about on-site systems or these new plants that we're all starting to turn on in our towns. We need to make sure that we have a fully trained workforce available to do that. So we're looking at potentially offering classes not only for on-site systems, but also for treatment plants so that they can get the trainings that they need. Because I see that as a deficiency for our region. They can go through NEWIPIC, the New England Interstate Pollution Control Commission. But we really need a local program for our needs. So we're starting to work towards that and find resources for that and make that available. We're working on putting together some IA system financing tools to help towns calculate what the impact would be of saying, well, we're gonna use IA systems here, or maybe we're gonna, we're thinking we have sewers here right now in this phase. What if we switch this over to something else? We worked with through the Nature Conservancy in a group called Nature Vest. They put together a calculator that can help do that, and we've offered that on our website. And you feel free to reach out to us if you would like to find out how that works. And then more recently, looking at climate resilience in terms of on-site systems specifically. And as we start to cite these expensive pieces of technology and potentially putting them in harm's way of climate change, and we're talking about mostly along our coastlines where we can probably expect sea level rise to impact not just from the surface, but subsurface and bringing the water level up. So we want to make sure that we are helping to provide some resources for those who are rolling out and planning where these technologies are going to go, some tools so that we can mitigate some of that, going forward. So we're not necessarily putting things as much in harm's way. But also on the backside, when it hits the fan and we finally get another Hurricane Bob, how do we recover from that scenario? If we have 1,000, advanced IA technologies located in a floodplain, how do we get those back up and running for those homeowners in a reasonable period of time? That's one of the things that keeps me up at night, if you're wondering. It's also the 1 hour a week Scouts thing. But I want to make sure that we have a plan for that. I want to make sure that we know what resources we would need and start to maybe start to pool some of those resources together to make sure that we have them. So that's a summary of what we're working on. I'm obviously open for questions, but if you want to find out what we're doing, website masstc.org. If you go to capecod.gov, you can find out about the septic utility program and all the other programs in addition to MassTC. Really need to update this slide because we're moving stuff over from MassTC to the new capecod.gov site. We have masstc.capecod and Instagram. We also have a newsletter. If you go to the website, you could sign up for our newsletter. We're always pushing out information about on-site technologies. We occasionally put up some stuff on YouTube. And in addition, I have some flyers for each of the 3 programs, which I'll leave up here on the front table for you to take home with you. So that's my question. That's my spiel. Any questions? Yes.
Yes. Thank you. That was excellent. I was probably one of the early when I was still in full elected office when I first got elected in '99, and I contacted the test center, and Barnstable didn't even know about it. And we brought a bunch of counselors out there, and they were mesmerized and shocked over it. So that's when George Hoyfelder was there. So my question, just simply, at this point now, all these years later, with all the IA systems that have been installed, I know Barnstable has a good number. Does the county have data that tells us how many of these IA systems are on Cape Cod? What are the various types of systems? And what's the data in terms, so just the quantity per town and then Barnstable County-wide, and then where is the data that says, okay, this particular system, the FAST system, or this one, or this one, or this one, has given us these results in terms of removing the nitrogen? Do we have that?
We do. I do want to say first, George still works for the county. I think he's the longest tenured. I think George has been with the county since before I was born, so he's like 43 years or something, 44 years.
I stand corrected. I'm glad to hear that.
He's still there. He loves it. He's living the dream. But to answer your question, so we do actually have that resource available. And I should have mentioned it when I was on the septic utility program site. because this is one of the things that they do. So for a number of years, before Septic Utility Program existed, we've done something called the IA Tracking Program. And it does exactly what you just said. So we collect data on all the operation and maintenance and sampling that has been done on every technology on Cape Cod and beyond. So we not only collect information from all the towns on Cape Cod, we also do most of Martha's Vineyard with the exception of Aquina. We do Nantucket, we do Wareham, we do the town of Sharon, we do Westport. So we have probably the largest database of performance information on IA technologies probably anywhere in the world, frankly. We have something north of 200,000 operational data points or more on how these things perform. If you go to, it's on the MassTC website for right now, there's actually a data viewer where you can go on there, pick the technology you're interested in. I think you can even drill down to the town that it's in. You can look at residential, commercial, seasonal versus non-seasonal is really difficult to tease out that information. It'll pull up a graph and you can basically look at it for yourself, because we're not going to tell you, we're government, as we all know. We can't make any recommendations on products, but we offer that data so you can make a decision. All of you can make a decision to say, all right, we're going to do these technologies. How does FAST do? And you can pull up that and say, well, that's, maybe that's not going to fit with what we need for our watershed. Or maybe we're going to pull up Septic, or maybe we're going to pull up some of the newer nitrogen removal technologies, and you can see how well they perform. And that data is publicly available for anybody to look at. I'm happy to share out a link somehow through the group if you'd like. But if you go to MassTC, you can find it on there.
So MassTC, you can see how many are in.
Yep.
Do you happen to know off the top of your head what Barnstable County has?
Some 3,000, I think, IA systems, and in total, we help towns manage, I think, somewhere close to 5,000 systems.
Wow.
So we have data on all of this. Yeah.
So first, Mark undersold MassTC. They're recognized worldwide basically, which is amazing for an organization. I definitely would encourage people, if you haven't, take a tour. I've done one. It's really interesting in general. I have a number of questions, but I'm only going to ask one.
Thank you. Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah. Mass DEP has been starting to get concerned that on-site septic systems might be a non-point source of PFAS. Particularly because if you think about it, PFAS is typically in a lot of plastics, and we put plastics in the dishwasher, everything like that. And I'm wondering if you've started looking at how you potentially mitigate PFAS contamination in septic systems.
Somebody always has to mention PFAS. This is and I don't mind talking about it, but you're going to need like an hour or two for me to get through everything. So PFAS is, as we all know, PFAS is incredibly ubiquitous in our environment. It's in this room right now. We're all sitting on chairs coated with PFAS. We're walking on rugs coated with PFAS. We probably all have clothing that has some sort of PFAS in it. And we actually have PFAS in our bodies. We also have microplastics, but I'm going to let that off to the side for a minute. PFAS materials, they call them forever chemicals for a reason. They don't break down easily, right? And that applies to any water or wastewater treatment technology that you can imagine. So yes, if they want to if they classify them as non-point sources, that introduces a whole host of other problems for us because they're not classified as they're not classified. So we're gonna have to look at the whole thing, right? We can't just focus on PFAS for that particular issue. But we are continuously putting these materials into our environment right now today, and we're not really doing a whole heck of a lot about it just in total, right? So in our standard septic systems, there's really minimal treatment in a standard septic system. That stuff's going through, getting right into the groundwater and going wherever it goes, right? Most treatment plants, and I don't really know of any that are really seriously addressing PFAS at this point beyond maybe being told that they have to and they're really resistant to it. Treatment plants are not dealing with this either. And the treatment plant process is so incredibly fast, there's no opportunity to deal with that issue in a reasonable period of time. So all these sources are pumping out into our environment in a very rapid fashion. on site, these advanced technologies, I think there's a little bit of opportunity there to be able to do some treatment because it's a very slow process through these advanced technologies. Some of them utilize bacteria, particularly with the wood chip technologies. There are fungi in wood chips that will break down PFAS. And we've been working with EPA for a couple of years on a program of looking at what removal rates look like through on-site technologies compared to treatment plants. Some of that data has been a little bit submarine because it was EPA data. So hopefully when things are a little bit more favorable, we can get some of that info out. But it's a huge concern. And it's something we need to be thinking about. With respect to treatment plants, a lot of people say we could just throw carbon filters on the tailpipe of our treatment plant and we're all fine, right? Millions of gallons a day through a carbon filter. Like, how are we going to deal with that? I think, as a nation, this is a national problem we need to be looking at. We need to be looking seriously at source reduction of these things, like major source reduction, because that's the only way we're really going to be able to take care of the problem. If we just put it on the back end, to me, it's a little bit of a social equity problem. If we just put it on the back end, you're dumping it on everyday Joe Blow who's just using a product because that's what's available and not on the companies that are making millions and millions of dollars off of selling these things. So,
excellent point.
Thank you.
Can we try to get to Joyce Flynn? Joyce, can we get her up?
Oh,
Joyce, you're on.
thank you. Yes, I'd like to thank you for all the information, which is obviously hopeful in a time when we've just heard bad things about health and the EPA's governance. Have a question looking toward the future. I know you're wishing to have a regional training center for certification, but could you give me like a 2-minute description of what the certification program that already exists consists of?
Sure. So this is in the very early phases where we're testing it out on groups of more expert type people to get feedback on what we need to change. We just ran through the first set of those classes. The certification program is really focused on making sure that the on-site operators, so the people who are operating advanced technologies, have the training and skills that they need to be able to successfully operate and maintain those systems. So the way it stands right now, if you are wanting to operate these systems, you can go and take a test that is a wastewater treatment plant grade 4 license, and it has almost nothing to do with on-site wastewater treatment, like at all. It's a huge hurdle, and I think it keeps really smart people out of, technologically competent people out from being able to operate these systems because they can't pass this. The test is pretty hard. It's not an easy test to pass. And as I said, it's not really relevant to on-site systems. The other piece of this is they're supposed to receive training from the vendor of the technology. It's not a great training program that's available to these folks right now through that. They also have to be licensed for the nitrogen technology, licensed as a Title V system inspector. That gives you a little bit more information on what you're looking for like, is a system failed or not, but that doesn't really tell you how you need to operate maybe an Advantech system or a FujiClean system, right? There's not a lot of good detail there. So the certification program is intended not just to be technology specific, but to really look at what are the basic concepts of on-site wastewater treatment? How do you deal with small pumps? How do you deal with small blowers? How do you deal with homeowner interactions is something that a wastewater treatment plant operator typically doesn't deal with. We want to build in safety classes. We want to build in some classes about how you can quote out projects and how you can, I think, ultimately start to offer, assistance with how do you run a business, those types of things for these folks, because it's important that we develop this cottage industry for our region and that we have a well-trained group of folks. So we're just getting the program started. Most of what we're doing right now is just focused on the technical aspects of running these systems, with the hope that as we build it, they will come. So the hope is that as towns want to roll out these programs, they start to require that an operator is certified ultimately to be able to operate the systems in their town. So that's the available program right now. If you're a wastewater treatment plant operator, you got to go off Cape to get training. You're looking online for training. There's not a really good host of things that are available right now, and there's certainly not in our region hands-on opportunities in any of this.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Do you want to call the questions for us? I don't.
Yeah, Elizabeth. Yeah,
Um,
'cause we have some folks
self-serving
online.
question, but I want to get this in front of everyone in the room. Composting toilets and urine diversion would be very useful perhaps for ADUs.
Mhm.
Do you believe in that, and could they work? And if so, who's standing in our way?
I don't know if I can really answer the last part, but the first part, yes. So composting. Those technologies, so composting toilets are available right now. They have been, they're built into the code already. So you can do composting toilets. Depending on what type of technology you're looking at, they contain all of the wastewater to the composting unit. It's not going into the ground. Now you still need to, after it's been composted, you still need to handle that material properly. But I think it's a legitimate option for ADUs. It's legitimate for any really scenario, even new construction or old construction. You can retrofit it into an existing home. With respect to urine diversion, one of the parts of this project we're working on with Falmouth is actually to get urine diversion fixtures approved by the plumbing board, which is has been a major uphill battle. There are a number of European companies that have existing products that we are, we can't do it for them, but we can help them walk through the process. They still, we can lead the horse to water. They still have to take the drink, right? So we're trying to encourage them to get approval in the States. And there's an announcement in the near future about an American manufacturer who is developing a urine diversion fixture, which will be incredibly useful for the region. I can't say much more than that because there's an NDA involved, but some of you I know have already seen it. So
Very good. Let's go down to Ron and then to the end of the table.
Just a couple of comments. Brian is too modest. The Gates Award, that was a national competition. Basically, they looked at all the facilities across the country, and they said, we had the facility that's adequate to test that. So, it's the respect that the Gates Foundation has for the facility. And, the money that we spend on subsidizing some of these hookups, that's not money out the door. That's money that is lent out and we get back. And the reason we're asking for more is because there's more people who want to do it. So the money that we get now will send out more loans. It's important to note that it's an enterprise. It's essentially an enterprise fund. So the money we lend out at 4% covers what we lent out at 0%, right? And the other thing is, which I just forgot, but anyway, it's this testing center is basically a big asset for the whole.
Thanks, Ron.
thank you, Ron.
We're going to go to the back end of the table and work our way around. So, gentlemen.
Yeah, I just wanted to say in Chatham, we set up just recently a sewer assistance fund. We appropriated, I think, $50,000 for the first year. It's just getting underway. You have to qualify for the Aqua Fund first, and it's an outright grant. I mean, it's phenomenal. Great. It's $1,000, $2,000. I don't remember exactly. So, it's available to anyone, not just the folks that have to have grinder pumps, which is a big issue. And on the grinder pumps, I should say that we are about to formalize the policy, but we are providing free grinder pump. I think Harwich does this too. Free grinder pump plus $2,000 if you're required to have a grinder pump in order to connect to the sewer systems. Easier.
That's great.
Because I know people are up against it.
Great. Yes.
In the 50 Ks to start. Brian, that was a great presentation. I think kudos to the county and kudos to all of us that have this kind of resource on the Cape. I had a quick question on, have we given any data on the efficacy of using shellfish to clean our saltwater embayments? I know Orleans is working hard on it. I think Falmouth as well. I'm not sure. Is there any data?
There is data available. It's not really within my wheelhouse, so I don't want to speak on it. But I know Mashpee through Rick York for a number of years. He did a lot of research on that in Chatham. Wellfleet's looked at it. I don't know if, Ryan, you want to speak at all to Wellfleet?
Yeah, I'm happy to follow up with you.
Thank you.
We've got a good 5 years under our belt. Performance varies, but we are getting credit from DEP.
Yeah, good.
It took a while, but it's not moving the needle, but it's part of the mix. Okay.
It's part of the
That's
mix.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Before we go around the table, let me just acknowledge, I think, is that Josie Alberg from Mass Municipal. Josie, did you have a question?
I do. Just a quick question. Thank you guys so much for the presentation and conversation. For folks who don't know me, I'm Josie Alberg. I work on environmental policy at the MMA. And I was curious for the center if there's some legislative proposals around banning the land application of sewage sludge. And I'm curious what impact that might have on Cape Cod and specifically for the center. Again, it's just a proposal, but seems to be something that's picking up some attention in the legislative conversation for this session. So just curious about land application and how valuable that is on the Cape. It sounds like maybe a smaller portion of how waste is managed there. Thank you.
Just a clarifying question, is that to encourage biosolids application or to totally restrict it?
At this time, the language on the table is to ban it as of a few years from now.
So
Sorry to bring down the energy in the room. That was
No. So I for a long time have called this situation Sludge-mageddon because we're really up against it. It's Sludgement Day, right? So any of you who have anything to do with a treatment plant know, where are you sending your solids right now? It's not Cape Cod. It's not even Massachusetts. If you're lucky, it's Rhode Island, right? And your trucks are waiting in line, hoping that they can dump their load that day. If not, they're going to be driving back and going back the next day. That's super efficient. 90% water going out the Cape multiple times, right? Just for it to be incinerated, by the way. I know some of our treatment plants, Yarmouth is going to be shipping it to New York State, something like that.
Yep.
This is closing off. Regionally, biosolids application is shutting down completely because of PFAS, right?
Right. So let me just jump in here. This is one of the next big issues that we have to wrestle with. And no one's fixing it for us. If you think Brian's worked up about it, go meet and talk to George Hoyfelder about it. He'll bend your ear, and he will literally light the room on fire. He's making it abundantly clear that this problem has to be solved and addressed. The things that Josie talked about don't help us. It's not focused on a solution to the problem. It's finding ways to make the problem more complicated, make it more worse. All right? Which once again focuses the pressure on us to figure out how we collectively can sort this out. And this is where having a Clean Water Center, having this team, they're the ones that can help us sort of wade through the various options that we're going to have to figure out. So there's going to be more to come on this. Doug, you had a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, you didn't really touch on the economics of the urine diversion, and I know the numbers aren't in yet, but that's the real hope. Because in Falmouth, we have a lot of watersheds, and we have a lot of sewer planning along the watersheds. But in the upper watersheds, we've got another 7,000 people. They're going to be faced with IAs, which might cost $60,000. Who knows, depending on how your site is. But we're hoping that the urine diversion could reduce that cost significantly. So between the urine diversion and hopefully the refundable septic tax credit, because then people of lower income can't really take advantage of the tax credit right now. So we're hoping that legislation gets passed, and that with the loan for the sub program, put all those things together, and it's going to be manageable.
Right. Kevin?
Yeah, Brian, thank you so much. Really, just your incredible resource. On the Aquafund, because you asked us to help promote it, and now you've got another tranche. Have you got some stats publicly available that we could actually share with people, like what the fund has actually provided, and help us promote it by sharing some of the numbers?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I could share the numbers through this group. Yeah,
we'll do that. Yes, MJ.
MJ from board. How much progress is made in adding technologies to the ban pad, so that there's more technology to go? I'm pretty sure the nitro system is getting pretty close. But
Can you, for the folks on Zoom, repeat that question?
So MJ from Bourne just asked what progress has been made on getting more technologies onto the state's banner best available nitrogen reduction technology list. So the technologies on that list fall into two categories. There's provisional use technologies, of which you mentioned the nitro system. There's another one called Nitrex on that list, and there's one called FujiClean that's also on that provisional list. There's the generally approved ones, which are nitrogen removal technologies that remove nitrogen, but not so great right now. They're like 19 milligram per liter or better or higher systems. So we obviously need these newer provisional ones that are less than 10 systems. The nitro system, as you mentioned, is the only one on that provisional list that's really close to moving to the general. I understand from that vendor, take it with a grain of salt because it's coming from the vendor, right, that they're within probably 4 months of getting their general approval finalized. I understand they have the data they need. It's part of the back and forth with the EP for that approval.
We've got some questions online here. Let's see if we can get them. Did you see this one?
Let's see. So Scott Norum says, has anyone modeled costs for sewers versus urine diversion, both upfront and operating costs? Some sewer phases are costing at least $80,000 per home connected, far less than a urine diversion plumbing transition. So I'm from Mashpee, so I'll rep Mashpee because I know nobody from Mashpee was here.
Yeah.
So in Mashpee, we just approved a satellite system. And if you do the math on the cost of that project versus the number of parcels in that project, it's $127,000 per parcel for that. That's a lot of money. And this is just a continuation of, as we all know, increasing costs, right? I showed the slide, increasing costs over time. So, we're looking at, he says 80, well, on the higher end, probably 127. I think averaging is probably closer to 190 to 100,000. If you look at the various projects, Yarmouth's project, Mashpee's phase 1, are some of those examples. If you look at IE Technologies, a median installation cost is somewhere around $50,000. They can range higher. We all hear anecdotes about somebody who spent $100,000 on their septic system, but that is not the norm. The median cost for an installation of an IE technology total replacement is $50,000. You can save some money if you can do a retrofit. So if you have a totally functioning system and you can basically plunk in a nitrogen removal system, that cost is significantly reduced by $10,000 to $12,000. If you're looking at urine diversion, this is highly dependent on the home. So if you have, a ranch-style home with an unfinished basement, you can probably get in and out of doing urine diversion for less than $7,000. It involves putting in a fixture, putting a tank in the basement, and then having somebody come and pump it out. If you have a 5-bedroom house or 7-bedroom house with multiple floors and finished basement, and you're tearing open walls and ceilings to do that, you're going to run into more costs associated with that. I don't know what those costs are because it's so dependent on the house and the contractor doing the work. But part of this project is really start to suss out some of those higher end costs. We have a good sense of what a cheap system could be, but we need to know what the higher end costs could be.
Scott, did you have a follow-up question?
Yes, thank you. The other thing two things. One is the water savings from urine diversion. And, every year or two, we have a drought warning and water restrictions. It's just, foolish to be wasting water flushing urine down the drain. The other thing that I've thought of is the inequity of having the homeowners who happen to be in the path of a sewer phase absorb, even with subsidy, the cost of the connection. And if you do move towards a mix that's more heavily weighted towards urine diversion with lower upfront costs, you could use some of those savings to actually include in the municipal budget some of those connection costs, which I think would be a lot more just in terms of the taxpayers and spreading the cost of the sewer connections and maybe even the plumbing adjustments for urine diversion across the wider base, because it's really the entire town and the region that are the beneficiaries of these nitrogen reduction actions.
Thanks, Scott. That's a good point. And that's something that
I heavily agree with. Yeah. I mean, we need to figure out how to help subsidize these. Like if you get a sewer, you're getting a heavy subsidy in most cases, at least right now, right? If you're required to do an IAA, right, as it stands right now, the homeowner is fully responsible for that $50,000 cost. We got to figure out how to cut that down because that's unfair, right?
It is.
In common for considering the 70-30 split like we do with sewers, to take more than the 30% for the town, really going to impact the town's debt ratio, and then your bond rating goes out the window?
No, exactly. Municipal finance hasn't really fully advanced to the point where these these issues are sort of factored into best practices, financial policies. You know, when we calculate standards for debt service, none of this stuff ever gets factored in. No, we're thinking about the direct municipal costs. So, Alan, did you have a question?
Just a comment, Brian. You and I started on this a long time ago, and I'm really thankful that you decided to make this a career for Cape Cod. Thank you.
Gordon.
I had a question about the comparability between IA systems and urine diversion in terms of lower than 10%. Can we get credit for what is urine diversion? What's their final outflow?
What's their final? Well, part of it is through this project. I mean, we've done some preliminary, smaller scale research, shows very significant removal. We issued a report. We worked with the Green Center. They asked us to do some research for them. So there was a report associated with that. I think urine. So we don't have to think about just urine diversion, or just like, we can also mix and match a little bit too, right? You could do urine diversion with an IA system and get better removal. You could do urine diversion with a sewer. You don't have to say we're doing one or the other. Even just regionally, we could say in the same house you could do both, right? And you can get that additive benefit. But hopefully we'll have better answers to that question of how much urine diversion removes, because it is a significant, as I said, it's 80% of the nitrogen stream is coming from us, our own urine. If we can separate that out and get it out of that waste stream, that's potentially less. Like if you sewered and still had urine diversion, you're taking the nitrogen out of the stream that the treatment plant has to deal with. And treatment plants originally were designed to deal with carbon, not nitrogen, right? So you can lower operating costs there potentially. There's a lot of additive benefits potentially too.
Right. So there's also the question of why do you have to take out your old Title V system if you hook up to the sewer? Infrastructure might be useful as a holding tank.
Exactly, yeah. You would still need to take care of the gray water, so you could have the gray water go through your existing Title V.
I think one of the great things about looking at this and studying this and having this kind of capability that Brian brings to the table in his team is that this is an evolving area of policy. All right. The state, there was a time when the state would have this stuff figured out and work with us in terms of implementing it. But those days are gone. We're the ones figuring this out, and we're the ones communicating. When I say we, I mean it's the county and the towns. And I think in terms of urine diversion, you got to give a lot of credit to the town of Falmouth, because that town has put a lot of resources on the table. And it's great that they have the ability to partner with our center to sort of look at this. But we're all going to benefit from this work. There's no question about it. One happy question. Does anybody have a happy question?
Is there any news on the non-proprietary layer cake type septic? Because we're really hopeful that would be. I know in Florida they use that. It's just wood chips underneath your septic field.
Yep.
And they don't even manage it or monitor it. They just put it in and set it and forget it.
Yeah. Before I answer that, I do want to point out Falmouth has invested $233,000 in the urine diversion project, and we got a $400,000+ grant from DEP through the 319 program. So we're getting significant. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, definitely kudos to the town of Falmouth for pushing this forward. But on the layer cake, so as everybody knows, George Hoyfelder has been working on the layer cake design for a number of years, and we even got a grant through the SNEP a number of years ago to put them out in the field. The basic news on that is this: we have 3-4 different designs, permutations of how you could do this non-proprietary technique. If you come to the test center, you'll learn all about these ad nauseum. You'll probably be sick of hearing me talk by the time you get to the end of that tour. But the simplest, cheapest design is not going to work for us. And really what that involves is just throwing in a layer of wood chips and sand below what is really a standard sand leach field and letting it rip. It'll work for about 2 years, and then the performance flags off. So cheapest solution there isn't going, it doesn't have the staying power, unfortunately. So we're sort of setting that one aside and moving on to some of the others. We have one that maintains a saturation within that layer. We call it the silt system. We have one called Big Layer Cake out there. Those have far better removal over the long haul, but they're more complicated, so there's more expense that goes with those. And then the final design is to separate the leach field from the wood chips and put the wood chips in a tank. That's also heavily being used down in Suffolk County, Long Island. And they're just rolling them out. Like down in Suffolk County, they're installing like hundreds of these, thousands of them each year. Not just that technology, but others, because they've said, we're doing IAs. We're just we're just getting them out. They, so they're doing it. As you mentioned, in Florida, they do have that design. We have some concerns about performance on that particular design, but it is allowed in Florida. And the state of Connecticut actually allows use of wood chips and organic materials beneath the leach field by the code, not even as a technology.
Very good. All right. Chris.
Thank you. Are there any local vendors who are harvesting the urine for a resource, converting to fertilizer?
Yeah, so there are a couple companies. It's mostly a group that's up in Vermont called the Rich Earth Center, and they have a spin-off called Brightwater Tools. They actually take urine and turn it into a sellable fertilizer now. We have some in our display case at the test center. It's called We Bloom. It's a registered product in the state of Massachusetts, so you could actually buy it if you want right now and sprinkle it on your garden.
There's a company called Wasted that will do it.
Mm-hmm.
They confirmed that they'll serve Falmouth. Yeah.
Yep.
Very good.
I don't know what they do. Maybe they take the stuff and grow marijuana.
All right. All right.
I don't know where they're out of, but they serve Falmouth.
Okay. Any final comments, questions? Brian, thank you so much for being here. Well done. Just a brief announcement. The county's been heavily involved over the past few days in figuring out how to deal with ice breaking. This has been a new initiative that we're in the middle of. And thanks to our friends in the Assembly, the commissioners have been working with the delegation legislatively to figure out how to deal with this problem. I'm going to ask Michael Dutton, our county administrator, just to take the floor and give us a quick update on what's happening with ice breaking. Now, particularly since we're in Chatham, and Chatham, you folks are the ones that got us started on this.
Thank you, Mark. Michael Dutton, I'm a county administrator. Back up. All right.
So they can see you on the
camera.
Well, I don't want to be seen.
Yeah.
So if you're a county administrator on a Friday afternoon or Friday evening, and you got a call from the chair of your county commission and your state senator, in this day and age, you don't want to hear, "Hey, we got an ice problem." So, bada boom, exactly. But I will say, we were able, thanks to the commissioners, thanks to the Assembly, we were able to move pretty quickly. Senator Sear called, said, "Hey, we have an ice problem," and a bunch of the harbors, mostly on the north side, were really iced in. A few on the south side, obviously, too. So it's beautiful weather today. Beautiful weather yesterday. My layman's interpretation is, we're not going to have an ice problem by the weekend. Well, I was quickly corrected, and we still do. So. Last night, the Assembly voted. Last night, right after the Assembly vote, I signed the contract with Robert B. Auer. They are sending a tug. We're hitting 3 of the particularly bad harbors on the north side. The Coast Guard, as of a few minutes ago, still has a boat that's traveling the South Shore and hitting as many harbors as they can on the South Shore. Their Coast Guard boat is too large for some of the harbors. So if we understand that there are harbors that are not served by the Coast Guard on the south side, we will get to the south side with Robert Auer and tackle those. So we do this, one, safety reasons. Obviously, we want your harbor masters to be able to get out if there's an emergency situation for them that they have to respond to. 2, we do it for the commercial fishing folks. The Fishermen's Alliance, very involved in trying to organize this and get us to a point where we're breaking up the harbors. And 3, which this group is going to have to think about when it comes springtime, there's going to be an enormous amount of damage to your marine infrastructure. So breaking up that ice now kind of reduces some of the pressure on your marine infrastructure. And obviously the costs are associated with repairs in your harbors. So Ken Cirillo, our dredge director, has been sort of leading and organizing this effort. And so if there is anybody, and your harbor masters are all deeply involved in this as well. So kudos to them for really providing us some help and assistance in this. So if you have harbors, and your harbor masters know this, that need to be ice broken, then just contact Ken. He's prioritizing the list as best he can with the Harbor Advisory Group, and so keep him posted. And your harbor masters know this. So anyway, I appreciate your support in this, and certainly the Assembly and the commissioners. We actually were able to move relatively quickly. In the future, we're going to come up with a plan to address this without having to deal with it as some emergency. I think there's a methodical way we can do this. So 10 years from now, when we have an ice problem, which will have the real meaning, an ice problem, we can address it a lot more easily than with a lot less moving pieces than we have had this year. So anyway, I just wanted to give you that quick update.
Any quick questions on ice?
Right. So what harbor's on the north side?
North side, Barnstable, Sassuat, and Wellfleet right now. And if there are more, then we'll tackle more.
Yeah, and if you saw where our dredge equipment is, it's pretty well iced in. Yeah, it's not moving. It's not going anywhere. And as you know, with the dredge program, time is money, right? So they're iced in. We need to finish Sassuat ASAP so we can move on to the other projects that we've got lined up.
South side, so the Coast Guard's one boat. Yeah, I started on that. The Coast Guard's one boat is methodically going up the south side. If there are south side harbors that are too small and need to be broken up, we'll get to that one
we'll
too.
Step in.
We're doing Witchmere and Sacramento.
Yep.
Yep. Very good.
Kentucky holds the Chatham and Harwich fishing fleet.
Yep, and that's a priority. Yep.
Very good.
So who says we can't be nimble around here? Good government.
Yeah, exactly. Nimbleness. Very good. All right. The only final comment or announcement that I have to make is that our next meeting is going to be with our friends at the Mass Municipal Association. And so our next meeting will be at the Harwich Tech School. So make a note on that on your calendar. If there are legislative issues that we want to flag for Mass Municipal, let me know so I can brief them ahead of time so that they can come in. Ed, did you have an announcement?
Well, just the time.
Oh, it's going to start a little bit late in order to accommodate Mass Municipal. They've asked us to start a little bit later. So the presentation will begin at 9 a.m. and the doors will open at 8:30.
March 13th.
And this is Friday. This is, again, Friday the 13th.
Just quick. You guys want some good news? You guys want some
Absolutely.
We submitted the county budget on Wednesday, which included a potential 15% decrease in healthcare costs. Okay, negotiation was actually going on at the exact same time. It would come in at 10%. It actually came in at 8%. That's the Barnstable County Cape Cod Municipal
So
Health.
all your budgets.
With or without GLP-1?
Without.
Oh, if you're overweight, it's your problem. No, I mean that's without. I guess that's a local option. I don't know. But anyway.
Thanks, Ron.
Into your budget, it makes a big difference. 7% potential decrease in anticipated healthcare costs is huge.
Thank you, Ron. Anybody else? Any other announcements?
Board meeting?
We're going to have a board meeting immediately following this, once we adjourn. So, any other business? Can I have a motion to adjourn our meeting? Do I have a second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. It passes unanimously. Thanks, folks, for joining us on Zoom, and we'll see you next month.
She's coming back with
Hey, Greg.
I have a 10 o'clock meeting downstairs.
Right.